Women's Day gives an extra reason to celebrate it. We mark it to celebrate women's achievements, to raise awareness about women's equality, and to accelerate gender parity. And as, as a linguist, educator, and activist, when women are out to work in the field among people, they face different kind of challenges. To share their experience with us, we have two distinguished speakers with us today, Dr. Srita Sinha and Dr. Anandita Sahoo. So it's time to listen to our first speaker, Dr. Srita Sinha, who has done her PhD in linguistics from JNU, New Delhi. And she is currently working as an assistant professor in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at IIT Patna. She has supervised several scholars in their PhD and has mentored several others across institutes in India. Her academic publications are widely read and appreciated. She has set up the Center for Endangered Language Studies at her institute for the benefit of lesser known languages in the region. She's also directing government-sponsored projects aimed towards linguistic standards. Dr. Srita is an avid reader and linguist, and shapes that having clear vision along hard work leads. So I take immense pleasure in inviting Dr. Srita Sinha. Please welcome Dr. Srita Sinha from IIT Madras. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ajit, for a generous introduction. Am I audible?
Yes, Shweta.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay, because the internet, it seems to be very intermittent. So I don't know the problem is here with me or some problem. Okay, so.
You're quite audible, ma'am, here.
Okay, so I am sharing my screen. I have a title slide and then I'll proceed with my talk. Okay. Okay, Ajit, can you see my title slide?
Yes, we can see it, Shweta.
Okay.
Yes, we can see.
So, okay, so ma'am, I'm not switching on the video because I'm afraid there is some problem with the bandwidth. So thank you very much, Professor Kavita Rastogi and SEL for considering me worthy enough to share my experiences as a female worker on this auspicious occasion. So very happy Women's Day to all the women out there and also the men who are here to celebrate this day with us. So special thanks to the men. So thank you very much for this opportunity. So being a woman is in itself a very interesting experience. Interesting because it holds in it the various hues of the rainbow of emotions that one experiences at the different stages, the different phases of life. A man might have his own set of arguments, but today let's be more focused on women, and I am more focused on myself and my experiences for this talk. So no offenses to the men in case if they find something which is not, apologies in advance. For my own ease of delivery, I have tried to segment my talk in three prominent sections. That of a young scholar when I was an MA student, then when I was a PhD research scholar, and finally in my current state as a faculty member at IIT Patna. Let me start with the first one. During my MA days, that was from 2005 to 2007, I had the good fortune of working on field under the able guidance of Professor Anvita Abbi. So she took the entire MA batch to Kumaon region in Uttarakhand. So we went by train from New Delhi, old New Delhi railway station. If you have been to that place, please visualize. The challenges start from that time. The timing of the train was late, 11 o'clock at night, and we were more women scholars than males. We were total 11 people. Out of 11, 7 were women and 4 were male scholars. So we started off at 8 o'clock in the evening. We started from the campus in autos. That itself is not a very healthy time to move around in Delhi, even so in 2005 and all. So we reached the old railway station. Again, the train was at 11 o'clock. Again, a lot of discomfort that time. So I'll go to these issues of discomfort later on. Let me first recite what happened actually and how did we go about the whole thing. So anyhow, in the morning, we reached Ranikhet district. So, and our location was a village named Kothia. So we got down on the road and then we had to walk downhill. It was around walk downhill, and the village was located in a valley. So, and there was no transportation. There were some quarter boys who had come because Professor Abhi had contacted the Sarpanch of the village. So there were some boys who had come to carrying our luggage, and we had backpacks. And then on foot we started going downhill. So I have stayed all my life in plains. So again, going uphill, downhill was a real challenge. So I was actually interested with the task of preparing the phonological sketch of Kumaoni. So the entire batch had the work to compile the grammatical sketch of Kumaoni, and each research scholar was assigned with some linguistic aspect that we had to capture while we were on field. So to account for the phonetic and phonological properties of the language, along with documenting the sounds, the syllable structure, everything, because this was the first time we were working on Kumaoni language. So we went actually in March 2007 last week, and we stayed there for 2 weeks on field in that village till April 1st week. Interestingly, before we started off, the female scholars were separately instructed by Professor Abhi as what to wear and how to conduct ourselves while on field. So from wearing salwar kameez with dupatta to avoid roaming alone, we had very strict do's and don'ts. We were clearly instructed that the village is not JNU, and we have to be doubly our safety. And I don't think the men in the group received such guidelines, because while we were being instructed, they were happily, having tea outside the classroom, and then they were never called in the room again. So I can say that this was a separate set of instruction that female scholars had received. So the journey to the village was strenuous, as I have already mentioned earlier. Some of us faced the first set of challenge when we developed stomach pain, great stomach pain, because it was actually very strenuous, and there was no loo facility on the way. So you can imagine that we had to relieve ourselves behind the bushes. So I'm sure if we go on field, most of us, when we really choose very isolated villages, this is the first set of challenge that as men also face the same set of challenge, but the Indian scenario is such that the discomfort lies more with the women somehow. So this was a very, very great challenge, and I do not want to recount those moments, how we did and what we did. It was really very painful. So anyway, once we reached the village, the basic logistic arrangements were decent. We stayed in the house of Sarpanch. So there were 4 rooms that were allotted to us. It was mud room. So it was not a cemented room. It was mud room with thatched rooftops. And we were provided with blankets that we had put on the floor, and we also had to cover ourselves. So again, now young scholars, you know, hard work really pays. So never be afraid if you encounter such hardships while you are on field. This is all about greater training. So as I already told, my job was to work on the phonetic and phonological sketch of Kumaoni. So for the first couple of days, the villagers saw us as infiltrators. They used to shy away from us. So collecting data during the first few days proved a real challenge. And remember, we were first time out on field, and some of us were, some of my friends had been on the train for the first time in their lives. So many firsts actually happened during that time. But here I would like to mention that being a woman somehow had certain advantages. Why? Because it was easy to befriend young girls, and because you know, they saw us that yeah, didi log, they have come from city, from Delhi, so they were very curious. The curiosity was reflected in their eyes. So we exchanged you know, pleasantries, and uh, uh, you know, we commented pleasantly on the costume they were wearing, the hairstyle, and also they saw that we could be friends. So that was where we had started, and that led us to the kitchen of the household. So you befriend young girls, and they are actually interested with cooking and all. So their mothers are in the kitchen. So they took us to the interiors of the household, to the kitchen of the household, and the kitchen actually provided very unique data in terms of terminologies, the phonological units, morphological units, which generally miss from popular data set. Why? Because women interact less, and obtaining data from women actually proves does not happen so popularly unless you means to visit their household, sit with them for some hours, and uh, build a kind of trust and confidence. Only then they open up. While on the other hand, men find it very easy to share their data with us. So this was an observation that time, and the observation proved very fruitful later on when I went for successive field works. So let me sum up my first phase when I was an MS student. So the challenges were, number one, the physical challenge. So again, the issues with toilet facilities and basic hygiene. This was a major physical challenge, apart from walking kilometers and kilometers, because we had to walk from one village to other village. There were streams that we had to pass on foot. So if you have been to Uttarakhand or Himachal, there are shallow streams which you can actually walk and go across. We did not know. We had, you know, cloth shoes and uh, shoes which used to get wet. Ek bar if you cross the stream, the shoes get wet, and you have to walk in those wet shoes for kilometers and kilometers. So these are some of the challenges that face. Then coming to social challenge, very slow acceptance by men and non-serious attitude towards uh, females and the work that we were doing and the data that they actually initially they dismissed us, while our male counterparts started getting data little easily. You know, they started talking on, the men had a lot of query about city life, job prospects, this, that, education, and the guys, you know, they also shared their own information. So the men thought that these are the serious you know, researchers, and the women are just like that. That was a bias that we observed during the first few days when we were on field. Then raised eyebrows that we were still unmarried and moving around without our families and in groups with men. So when you really go to very remote villages, women who are of a certain age, when in MA we are, you know, 23, 24, 25, that is the age, and you're still unmarried, you are away from your family, you're roaming around, you're giggling, you're moving in groups. So this attracted raised eyebrows and you know, unpleasant facial expressions. So how did we cope with this thing? So for physical challenges, there was nothing much that could have been done. So the best was provided to us, but it's another thing that the best also was very strenuous. So, and the social coping strategy, so we projected ourselves as sisters. हमने अपने आप को ना सबका बहन बना लिया. मैं तुम्हारी दीदी हूँ, मैं आपकी छोटी बहन जैसी हूँ. There's that. So this is how we try to fit ourselves in as field worker in that village. So, and we always made sure that we wore our dupattas. We did not put any makeup, no bindi, no kajal. Hair was tied really, no flowing hair, and no loud talks and laughs. So this is what we followed, because in the first few days when we cracked a joke, we laughed. So that did not go very well with the village people. So we kind of checked our behavior, and this is how we did. Coming on to the second phase as a PhD scholar, the experience was much easier because of the previous exposure that I had. Also, the setting was different. So when the first setting was entirely different from my own mother tongue, I am from Bihar, I went to Kumaon, the language was new. So linguistically, we could not identify with the place. So that is why there was no cultural connection, and we were young, and this was a first time exposure. So the challenges were many. But the second time when I was working on Maghi phonology, so the location was Bihar, where I was little more comfortable because of the ease of understanding of the language that I had. So, and there was greater degree of freedom for me to choose locations which were comparatively safer to work. But adhering to dress code and avoiding mingling with men still persisted. And these two things I followed, and so successfully I finished my fieldwork. Now then, moving on to when I was a faculty member. The experiences again are different when you are on the other side of the table, because there are different set of duties and there are different set of responsibilities, and you are expected to lead the team. So but interestingly, I also ended up providing the same set of do's and don'ts that Professor Abbi had provided me with when I was in my MA. So my research group has visited many groups in Bihar, and my observation here is that clothes are really significant. While working in Bihar and adjoining areas, I always prefer wearing sari, and people find it easy to connect with me. There is always a group of men in each fieldwork who would leer at you. There will always be women who would giggle and shy away, but avoiding miscreants is essential. Late hours in field, which I have followed strictly while doing my own field work, and I would advise other female scholars and male scholars also, field should be strictly avoided. One should never venture alone, and safety should never be sidelined. Now, let me give you a brief description of what kind of field works I have done. So as I already, let me apologize that I could not get much time to prepare my slides because I wanted to keep this thing more conversational. So during my MA, I did not have much choice to choose my topic. But I really felt that of all the aspects of linguistics that we are entrusted to, account for, accounting for sound is the most difficult. The other scholars will have their own take, but this is what I felt that time, because it is very difficult to get right data right from the beginning. Keep hearing the same set of sounds. You go on jotting down. How do you account for minimal pairs? That is the first thing. How do you account for syllables? So you have to get the same sound at the initial level, medial level, final level. So uh, that makes the whole task very, very humongous. And then you have a whole set of theories that you have learned, and you want to fit your data in theory. So again, my advice to field workers here is that never go to field with any mindset. Be very open. uh, मुझे पहले 4 दिन कोई डेटा नहीं मिला था, and we were there for 2 weeks, and right from the first day my friends who were working on morphology and syntax, they started um, coming up with data. Oh, I got this thing, I got this thing, इसका मुझे 2 मिल गया है, and I have to get 3 more, इसका मुझे मिल गया है. So that was little depressing that time. But I still remember 4th day suddenly I recording everything. So on the 4th day, I got the first set of minimal pairs, and from then on, I started getting a lot of data, because you also develop an ear for data. That does not happen in classroom teaching. No matter how much your instructor um, tells you that this is how you collect data, this is all these things, does not actually come in handy when you are on field. ये सब किताबी बातें किताब में ही रह जाती हैं. Real is you go on field time and again, you are exposed to it, and you develop an ear for data. You develop a knack of asking questions. You start asking the right questions to get the right data set. And I ended up getting A+ in that. And I don't know if you all think it to be funny or not. I wrote an entire 100-page mini dissertation. That time I did not have any laptop, and many of my friends had laptop, but most of us did not have that laptop. We had planned that when we go in PhD, we'll buy laptop. So I wrote that entire 100-page thesis all by my own hand. And imagine if you are writing a page and towards the end of the page, there is a mistake. You are writing with pen, you cut it. And the kind of Professor Abdi is, you want to put your best foot forward. So I had to rewrite the whole page again. And this is how I wrote a 100-page thesis, along with, some 700 word lists that goes in the annexure, and the sentences and the informant list. And there were 2 stories that I collected. So, and I feel happy about it whenever I look at my handwritten dissertation. And tell all my scholars that this is your work. Never shy away from hard work, because the training that you get. So this is what I did when I was in MA, phonetic and phonological sketch of Kumauni. Then coming on to Maghi. So that was on suprasegmental features. I worked on Maghi. Again, I took a step further in phonology, went on to describe suprasegmental features, syllable structure, and a whole set of metrical theories in my PhD thesis. And thankfully, the thesis is also published, and the work is still read by many people who take a work in Maghi language. And then I went on field to account for more aspects of Maghi based on optimality theory, phonology being my specialization. However, of late, I've also started working in sociolinguistics. So that is an extension. And then how I set up this Center for Endangered Language Studies. It was in the year 2017. It was 2 years since I had joined IIT Patna. And thankfully, the then director, Professor Pushpak Bhattacharya, who's into computational linguistics, he called me over phone, and he said that, would you like to head center? There's a center which I have on mind. Would you like to head it? I said, sir, it would be an honor. And it came through MP Lads. Uh, MP Lads, we got fund. So the building is still under construction. So center start hona is not equivalent to actually getting infrastructure. Center start hone ka matlab yahan pe hua that the responsibility has started and you are answerable and you have to show your output without getting any input at this point of time. So I don't know so much of my own. I have invested in various field works, but then that is a part and parcel of academic life. But again, my message here is that uh, responsibilities in academics come first, and the glory starts coming little later. Like I'm sure Professor Kavita Rastogi will also agree with this, that the first, when we start young, we have a lot of challenges, we have hardships, we have to sail through the hardships, and then when you see the hard work paying off, when you actually see there is some kind of positive change in the society and your hard work being recognized, that is when your challenges turn into fruits that you see, that that is how your academic hard work pays off. Then I took my scholars here. We went to many places along River Ganga, uh, and we ended up reaching a place in Buxar where there is a Lathori community. This community and the culture and the language of this community has never been documented. We started interacting. Some people migrated from Buxar, and they are staying in a isolated small village in Bihta itself. So one of my office staff, he came to know that this is the kind of work that I did. Then he came and told me कि मैडम वहाँ पे गांव में कुछ लोग हैं, वो जिस भाषा में बात करते हैं ना वो समझ में नहीं आता है. तो मैंने कहा कैसे बात करते हैं, मगही में तो नहीं, भोजपुरी नहीं, अंगिका मैथिली नहीं, तो भाई बिहार में और कौन सी ऐसी लैंग्वेज है. Then he said कि मैडम वो मिक्स एंड मैच करके कुछ बोलते हैं, कुछ इंग्लिश का वर्ड रहता है, कुछ उर्दू रहता है, कुछ हिंदी रहता है. And I thought this to be very interesting, so I visited that place, and then we picked up a few items that were really unique. So we started thinking ये लोग यहाँ migrate करके कैसे आए हैं, because this is not where this linguistic group has its origin. So they said that along the river Ganga they have actually traveled. Their forefathers and ancestors belong to the Banjara community from Rajasthan, and then slowly they came to the plains and traveled along river Ganga and settled in Buxar. So we went to Buxar with my research group. So here at IIT we do not get, and so we have to depend on the poor research scholars that we have, PhD scholars. So I had 5 research scholars that time, so we went there. We got very, very interesting data, and the data was again published, and a few papers are under review, and we have also discussed with a few personals at CIIL. The data is really interesting, and it seems a new language. It is still too early to say for sure, but then the data is still very unique. The words are the syntax different, the morphological features, the way the words are associated with each other, they are very different from any of the languages that we've seen in Bihar. And there are some peculiar features which I talked to a friend from Rajasthan, and I was just sharing that ये ऐसे ऐसे माँ को बुआ बोलते हैं, क्यों बोलते हैं माँ को बुआ, और दादी को बुजी बोलते हैं. Then he said that seems identical to some of the culture, that some other linguistic items that is found in some cultural belt in Rajasthan, where mother is called bua. Why? Because the mother stays in her own paternal household, and brother's kids call her bua, and so her own kids also start calling her bua. So this is how this trend has started. So after a few generations, it has become a trend that own children also call mother bua. So this was very interesting. So that is how I did some more research, and I found that there were certain kind of relationship that this language might have to other languages of Rajasthan. But the findings are, I would say, it's still premature. There is more to be done, and we are still working on that. More data is required. But I'm very hopeful, and thankfully I've got good set of scholars. And as a woman, yes, we have our own set of challenges, nothing denying it. But as women, we also have advantages where we really connect with girls, women, and we connect with older people much easily. It's just that we have to abide by certain protocol that is required at this stage, because India is still maturing. So with with infrastructural facilities, safety issues, dressing code, these are some of the things that we should always keep in mind uh, to complete a certain field work successfully. I would quickly like to share a small a joke that we share among our batch. The incident actually happened during the Kumbh. So it is a very silly experience, but I wanted, so when madam asked that you share your experience of field, I sat and I started recounting those days, and I have to share this. So for my first field work, when we started visiting house, we were assigned, we were made into pairs, that two people दो करके जाओ, and अलग के ग्रुप was 3, उसमें 3 लड़कियां थी, and then 2 करके तुम लोग you go and visit the households. Because initially पहले 2 दिन तो हम 11 के ग्रुप में we were roaming around, so the entire village got intimidated कि ये कहाँ से ये लोग आ गए, 11 एक साथ घूम रहे हैं. So Professor Abhi instructed that this is not party time, you break in groups, and जिसका identical areas है आप लोग group में जाइए. So I was paired with a male scholar, and then we realized that wherever we went, people would take extra interest in observing us, and we could also not understand, and their out of context smiles. So after befriending some girls, we got to know that they considered us to be husband and wife. So interestingly, when I said that he is not my husband and that we are classmates, we were greeted with astonishment and again raised eyebrows. The classmates ठीक है, but लड़का लड़की साथ में घूम रहे हैं, and we had to quickly declare that we share a very sibling kind of relationship. And then immediately there was a lot of acceptance. Suddenly, हाँ बेटा बहुत अच्छे, ऐसे ही रहना चाहिए, बिल्कुल भाई बहन की तरह रहना चाहिए, ये खाओ वो खाओ. And in their own language we were offered with a lot of delicacies, and at many households. And this has still been a joke. When I still greet my that particular batchmate, I still call him, so brother, how are you? And he'll call me, so sister, how are you? And we laugh about it. So this is how it is. And I would like to summarize my experience in a nutshell is in a way that working as a field worker is really challenging, but our aim should be to filter the wrong informants and hold on to the right informants. We have to be one of them in order to be able to gain their trust. As women, we have to be alert as well as patient. Knowing the place and the population beforehand should be on the priority list. Showing off our own knowledge at times becomes disadvantageous. So it's good to be polite and it's good to be humble. But the greatest advantage is that women, being natural talkers, always give and receive huge data. So politeness, softness, and showing extra attitude, very basic female attributes, really help while being on field. Not good. Not good. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Srita, for finding out time out of your busy schedule and sharing your experiences with us. I think a society is made of good and bad both. It may be good and bad people, or maybe good or bad thoughts. And however, challenge is always posed by bad elements in the society. It may be because of your gender or your attire or other things. And I think after learning your experiences against the challenges you faced when you are out in the field, young researchers will be more prepared when they are out in the field next time. Thank you so much. So now it's time to move on to our second guest speaker, Dr. Anandita Sahoo, who is working as an assistant professor in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. She obtained her PhD in linguistics from Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, India, and her PhD thesis analyzes passive construction in South Asian languages such as Odia, Khadia, and Malayalam. Her primary research areas are linguistic typology, syntax, and pragmatics. Her research works focus on typology and grammaticalization of voice and copula construction. And Dr. Anandita Sahoo is going to share her experiences as a woman researcher who goes on field visit every now and then. And she will discuss the methods, tools, technology that she used to collect linguistic data. So please welcome Dr. Anandita Sahoo from IIT Madras. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ajit. It's indeed a privilege to be here on this occasion of International Women's Day. And I'm thankful to Professor Kavita Rastogi and SEL for giving me this opportunity. It's indeed a proud privilege. Okay, so I wish a very happy Women's Day to all the women folks around, friends, colleagues, professors, teachers, and the wonderful men that we have here. So considering it's Women's Day, we must not forget the support that the men folks, they sort of offer to us. But having said that, it's no easy thing to be a woman in this society. And then on top of that, when you are a woman researcher, especially in linguistics, and then you go for field work, it's entirely a different ballgame altogether. As Srita just mentioned, Srita is a friend, and she has already given some very useful informations of this practical do's and don'ts. I'm going to focus primarily on the kind of work that I do and how much of data collection does it involve, and what sort of tools and technologies that I deploy to build a repository. I primarily work on interactional linguistics, which actually demands a lot of conversation to be recorded. So what I'll do, I'll share the slides, and then I'll work. Okay. So here I have, and I'm not really in a great health. I'm nursing a running nose, and then it's a weird situation here. Okay, so can you see my slides? Is it visible?
Linguistic story from the field of the theory.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So that's what is the title of my talk, A Woman Linguist Story from Field to Theory. There's a disclaimer out here. To begin with, I wasn't a field linguist. I worked on a construction called passives, and then primarily I come from Chomskyan School of Thought. So I was working on syntactic typology, which did not involve much of fieldwork at that point of time. For my PhD thesis, what I did, I considered one language from each family. So for Indo-Aryan, I considered Odia because that's my first language. For Dravidian, I had Malayalam, and for Austroasiatic, I had Khadia. And then Tibeto-Burman, I didn't have any language from there because, quote unquote, there are no traditional or conventional passive constructions, so we could not consider that. But I did go for 3 other languages and 1 representing language from each family. Khadia, why I considered, because that's spoken in Odisha, and Professor Abhi's work is extremely relevant here, where she's talking about Odisha as a linguistic area. So we have Indo-Aryan, Dravidian, Austroasiatic, all kinds of languages being spoken in and around the state. I was trying to understand if there has been any language contact story in terms of passive constructions. But for Dravidian, I was supposed to take Telugu. Unfortunately, at that point of time, the young linguist that I was couldn't really think about that aspect of language study at that point of time. So I went for Malayalam, but it would have been really nice if I could consider Telugu. So now, as a faculty here, as a young academic, but I'm an old woman in that sense. So that is what I keep talking all the time. I'm a late bloomer. I'm biologically old, but academically young. So I'm trying to understand what sort of language contact story can be told, keeping Odisha as a linguistically diverse state in mind. So I do look for Khadia as an Austroasiatic language, Telugu as a Dravidian language, and its connection with Odia, which is an Indo-Aryan language. And my recent interest has been in copula constructions. That's the project that I'm working on, and I'm trying to understand copula constructions from a typological lens. So when I say typological, definitely I'm going to include as many languages as possible spoken in Indian subcontinent, or maybe like basically it's better to go with a safer term that is South Asia. Okay, so I'll just, considering it's more about personal experience sharing event on the occasion of Women's Day, I would just briefly talk about my interest with linguistics. To begin with, I wasn't an MA in linguistics student, unlike Shweta, where she did have a lot of exposure to go for the data collection, and coming from a wonderful university like JNU, I wasn't that privileged. So my interest with linguistics has a completely different turn altogether. To begin with, I came from a literature background, but then I was extremely interested to know linguistics, because linguistics and ELT, that is what it was being told, like it was being called at that point of time when I did my master's in English. So that specialization, the special paper linguistics and ELT actually caught my attention, and I did want to explore more as much as possible in this area. So I was just roaming around. There were personal experiences related to how I moved to Delhi. And then I was thinking to do a PhD in linguistics, because actually the structural representations of the tree diagrams that caught my attention to begin with. So I was kind of keen to find out an opportunity where I can explore linguistics a little more. And then when I tried, so it's more like self-study that I did to start my career as a linguist. So the first thing that caught my attention was the linguistic diversity of India. When I was in Odisha, hardly did I know anything about the richness of languages that we have in our country. So once I moved, or once I crossed the boundary of my state, then I got to know what huge linguistic diversity that we have in terms of the country that we live in, and how limited my exposure was. So once I came to Delhi, things became sort of things got open up, and I could find out new opportunities. I explored options, and fortunately IIT Delhi happened, and then Professor Pritha Chandra, who was my supervisor. So I owe my career to her. She's the one who actually did a lot of hand-holding, and then she kind of she did lead me through this wonderful world called linguistics. So I was enthusiastic about linguistic diversity of India. I was curious to understand structures, especially morphology and syntax. And then I was equally fascinated by linguistic jargons. So all these terms, it's like semantics, phonology, morphology, pragmatic, discourse studies. So the terms were very intriguing for me, and I was super fascinated about it. And as I mentioned, I was also trying to break free from the monotony of traditional literature studies. And why I would say traditional literature studies, because I come from a local university in Odisha, where we did not have enough exposure, just like the people from central universities that they had. So it was a very conventional and traditional system of teaching. So I was trying to break free from there, and I did want to explore the world of languages while pursuing the highest academic degree. So that's how my interest with linguistics started, and I fell in love with it, and I'm still in love with this discipline. I definitely want to explore as much as possible as a linguist and as a woman linguist in that sense. Okay, so now let's go to the topic of discussion for today. which is working in the field. As I mentioned, I did not start my career with enough exposure of field linguistics. I was I'm still taking baby steps. As a PhD scholar, since I was working on Korea, I did go to the field for quite a while, multiple times, because passive constructions are not an easy thing to explore, because we do not use passives much frequently in the conversational discourse. So my experience of fieldwork started from PhD. So and then which actually became, it took completely a different turn when I joined here as a faculty, and I'm trying to explore a subdiscipline called interactional linguistics now. So initially my fieldwork was description centric. I was trying to understand how passive constructions look like in Korea, in Odia, and in Malayalam. What sort of differences would it have if you compare it with English, and what sort of syntactic structure can be proposed, which didn't really involve much of community-centric discussions in terms of linguistic research. But then, did anyone say something? Am I? Okay, all right. So, so then what I did, so I started my field research as a descriptivist. I was trying to describe a particular linguistic phenomenon. And then now I'm trying to explore the data, like different languages from an interactional linguist framework. So, okay, so what is traditionally field linguists do? And then what are the conventional work that I do, or for that matter, all my peers do when they go to the field? We try to document languages, we try to analyze, we try to preserve, we explore, we learn, and then we also unlearn. The first three things, document, analyze, and preserve, primarily meant for endangered and lesser known languages. And to explore, learn, and unlearn can be of a kind of a generic purpose or a generic objective. There's a disclaimer out here. I'm not really working on documentation of anything as of now. I would love to, given a chance, or if I will be provided a chance, I would definitely look for documenting multiple lesser known endangered languages which are spoken in my home state. But as of now, I'm not into documentation. But a lot of field linguists, they do document, analyze, and preserve. But as far as my work is concerned, I try to explore. I try to explore various constructions in Odia, in Korea, and in Telugu as of now. So Telugu work, I haven't started it yet. My project just started last year. It's about typology and diachronic approach, like diachronic study of copular constructions in Indo-Aryan languages. So even if it's primarily focusing on Indo-Aryan, I'm trying to also understand a bit of Austroasiatic and Dravidian system. But the main focus is in Indo-Aryan. So I'm trying to understand Odia, Hindi, Bangla, Marathi, and Gujarati. So these are the 5 languages that I have plans to work on. Odia, being a native speaker, the data collection process is extremely different. But if I go to Bangla to collect some data from Bangla or Gujarati or Marathi, that's going to be slightly different. So, so the main purpose of my work is to explore and learn things. And in the process of learning, I also unlearn things. And this unlearning, is more important, I think, than anything else. So unless learning is a different thing and unlearning is different, why? Because there have been a lot of preconceived notions that we have, or the kind of preloaded information that we have, which do not stand true at the current situation. So when you are a linguist, you know that no language is more beautiful than another. No language is bigger than another. No language is more important than another. Everyone has to enjoy equal privilege, equal status, and equal opportunity. That doesn't happen in the real sense. That doesn't happen in the practical sense. I'm pretty much aware of it. And then theoretically, even if all languages are same, but then there are multiple socio-cultural and economic reasons which actually make languages differ. So so in the process of learning these things, what I am unlearning are these 3 primary or the important factors that even if I speak Odia, my language is no way more beautiful than any other language in the world. For me, my language could be beautiful. For you, your language is more beautiful. So it's like all languages are the same. That is something we have to learn. And your language is more important than others, that you have to unlearn. So this learning, unlearning story has been going on ever since I started my career. as a linguist. Okay, so then this is what my research is all about. As I focused, I'm primarily working on interactional linguistics framework, which involves a lot of data collection. Then typology, of course, it does have to do data collection work, but typology primarily description centric, and interactional linguistics, it's mainly the pragmatic use of different linguistic constructions that I'm working on. And then the third category, or the third framework that I deploy for my research, is the diachronic framework. Diachronic framework doesn't really have to do anything with the field study, I think, because here you just need to focus on the written text to figure out or to understand how a particular construction has developed over a period of time. So the third one, diachronic framework, is not really the matter of discussion for today's talk. I would rather focus on the first two, and what sort of methodologies that I deploy, and what sort of challenges do I face, what are the advantages that I have when I work as a field linguist. Okay, so what do I do in interactional linguistics framework? I have considered a couple of linguistic phenomena. And one of the major phenomena that I'm working on currently is copula constructions, considering this is a linguistics crowd. So I'm sure most of you would know what a copula construction is. We have languages which are copula rich. There are languages which do not have any copula at all. For example, the Mandarin, the Chinese languages, let's say Mandarin is one language which doesn't have any copula at all. And you come to Odia, we have two different copulas, and in Hindi there is at least one copula, that is hai, which like main Anandita Sahoo, and then or bacche yahan, but when you say bacche yahan khel rahe hain, that's hai, which is an auxiliary verb, but it might it can be considered as a copula to begin with, which has become an auxiliary. The function is auxiliary there. When I say main Anandita Sahoo, in that case, who is the copula that connects the subject with the rest of the predicate. So is the case with I am Anandita. So is MR, that they can be treated as copula. So in Odia, we have two different copula constructions. We have one otte, and then the other one is achi. If we have Odia speakers here, you must be familiar with this debate that is going on, whether otte does it really exist in our language or not. Keeping aside that kind of a debate, Odia has two different copula. One is otte, mu anindita otte, that means I am Anandita. You can say mu ghare achi, that means I'm home, like me, home, and then like I, home, and I'm. So we have at least two different copulas, and in Hindi there is one, and in English we have ism R, which are the variants of B, and then there are languages like Mandarin which do not have any copula construction at all. So what I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to figure out how typologically copula constructions might work. I'm not going to talk about what are my observations and stuff like that, because this talk is not meant for that. But what I'm going to discuss is that how I collect data as a field linguist for my interactional work. And diachronically, I do not go for any field work to collect data. Rather, I focus on the literature or the text. So now let's go to what kind of research questions you should have when you go to the field. You have to find out a key problem, like for any empirical project that you are undertaking, whether you're trying to understand copula or nominalization or any kind of linguistic phenomenon under consideration, you need to find out what is the key problem that you want to address. Without a question, if you go to the field work would be objectiveless, and then I don't think you would get the right kind of data that you are looking for. So like when you have a key question, when you have a key objective, that will lead to get a kind of relevant set of data, and then eventually you can analyze it to get the right kind of result that you want. That it's not that you want, the right kind of result that it should give. And then you need to formulate hypothesis, and then you have to investigate. For doing all these things, finding out a problem, collecting data, doing the analysis, and then formulating hypothesis, all of this would involve empirical repository. Like the data, first you need to collect data. So theory might be something like whether you are following the inductive approach or the deductive approach, that's a different story altogether. But without data, your theory is going to be lame. So even if you want to test some theory or you want to extend your theory, extend a particular theory to your given language, you must have enough empirical evidence to it. So my understanding is that I'm kind of bridging the gap between the formalist end and the functionalist account, and then I'm trying to find out how theory can actually enrich the analysis of empirical data, and empirical data can actually enrich a theory to be more robust and to be more strong. So I'm trying to have both the things hand in hand, leading standing here as a theory-centric person and looking to the approaches of empirical data-driven research, so that I can have what to say, a hybrid approach, if I can call it. So those who are familiar with Baker's work, there is something called FGT, formal generative typology. So that's what the framework I'm looking for. But at the same time, I'm also trying to describe different linguistic phenomena from a pragmatic point of view, or from a pragmatic perspective also. And what sort of research questions do I ask? I ask questions like, do we have this kind of a phenomena? If you have a certain phenomena, what sort of structure do you have? How do we get certain constructions? What is the diachronic path to it? If you are familiar with I do read Odia, I write in Odia, I speak in Odia. So and Odia is my first language, and I'm equally confident in almost all the domains of linguistic, language skills. So I try to understand how this particular construction might have come into this form. So what is the grammaticalization path? So that is my question to why. And then once you get the question how and why, you can move to when it could have happened. So then you need to go back to the literature. You need to find out, okay, if in the contemporary Odia, I have this kind of a construction, did this construction ever exist in the previous literature? Like if I study from 15th century, 16th through 17th to the contemporary literature or the contemporary spoken discourse, what sort of grammaticalization path has been followed so that a particular construction has become this, and it has evolved from X, and then it has reached to the point Y. And then who are the ones who are responsible for it? For obviously it's the community speakers. The language belongs to the community speakers. That's what I believe. And here I would actually cite. I attended Professor Abbi's talk, I think a couple of months back, where she mentioned language is a living organism. So considering it's a living organism, and then it does change, and it takes a different course with time. So then we are trying to understand who is the one, like who is that person or that community speaker, which plays the most important role for the change in language. So obviously it's the community speakers who upholds the speakers who uphold this kind of linguistic, the kind of linguistic, or who play a vital linguistic change. And then it depends whether you are going to work on the primary data or the secondary data. So as linguists, we must rely on the primary data. Secondary data is important when you are doing some kind of diachronic analysis, but for typological and interactional framework, you must do the primary data. And what are the methods that I deploy? I generally go for a mixed method design. You also need to find out what kind of work you are doing, whether it is qualitative or quantitative. If you are doing quantitative work, then you have to do a quantitative analysis, which I'm not doing it actually. My work is primarily qualitative, even if I do collect data from the field, but I am not quantifying it at the moment, and I don't think I have a plan to do any quantitative research. So I'm mainly focusing on the qualitative linguistics work, and then I follow mixed method designs, which is where I do apply more than one method, depending on the kind of data that I need. So for my interactional linguistics work, what I do conversation analysis. And this conversation analysis is the natural conversation. So what I do here, so I'll talk about the generic challenges later, but for the moment, my focus is going to be what are the personal challenges that I face when I record conversation. since I do study pragmatic cues, or the pragmatic tools that we have, or the pragmatic observations that we have during the natural conversation, it becomes extremely difficult when I set a camera and I invite speakers and then I let them sit there. The moment I say I'm going to record it, then people will just go off. Otherwise, all these women, so I look for diversified community speakers. So sometimes I look for various age groups, different genders, different socioeconomic background. So I try to record conversations as varied as possible. Maybe at one setup I'll have all the women in a family. I generally target the joint families, which are difficult to get in the current situation. Generally, the contemporary societies are more kind of nuclear. But then, if you ever have a joint family, there you can get very, very interesting conversations happening among the women. So when I request the women folks, and then I tell them that, okay, listen, this is my research, I'm trying to record your conversation, and then I'll do the analysis of it, I'll transcribe, and then I'm trying to understand how different kind of linguistic phenomena work for your language. Let's say for Odia data, I generally work on Odia to begin with, because other languages, fortunately I'm privileged to have TAs or the RAs, because this is a sponsored research given by sponsored by IIT Madras. So for example, for Gujarati, for Bengali, for Marathi, I would have RAs for them. So I've started only Odia as of now, and then eventually I'll move to other Indo-Aryan languages. So for an Odia family, I request, let's say I'll request all the women folks, and then I'll tell them that, okay, come, we'll have, and it's just a free flowing natural conversation. I'm going to record it. That's it. I'm not going to ask you any question. It's not an interview. Make sure there is a difference between a planned interview and a natural conversation. So when you have a planned interview, you might not get the right kind of pragmatic cues that you are looking for. But if it is a natural conversation, then you would actually get very, very interesting phenomena. And then the eye movement, the gesture, the posture, the kind of language or the kind of phrases that they use, that's going to be very different from a scripted or from a planned interview. So since my work primarily focuses on natural conversation, otherwise people, all these women folks, they would be talking very nicely when they're in the kitchen. All kinds of jokes would be cracked, all kinds of, these colloquial terms would be used. And I look for these colloquial terms, but unfortunately, when I set up a camera, everybody would be extremely formal and they would speak as if they're delivering or talk. So that's a problem that I encounter in conversational analysis. But having said that, I find since I look for very, very diversified speakers communities or very diversified language consultants that I want to collect data from, starting from to 60-year-olds. So the male folks are going to be, the data from the male folks are going to be different. The data from the same age group females are going to be different. So my personal observation is that this young adults or the adolescent kids, they are the ones who are most talkative. So all these diversified groups that I have worked on so far, I find these college-going kids or the high school students, they would be more confident to help you out with the data collection process. However, I look for primarily the women folks talking, because they have more interesting phrases to give me. But as usual, as I mentioned, with the camera and lights on, it becomes extremely formal. So that's one challenge that I face. So that is one way. So since I work on interactional linguistics, first thing is conversation analysis. Second thing is narration and systematic elicitation. So in narration, what I do, I ask them to tell me a story. It could be any story. And here also, it's again the same age group that help me, that generally they help me the most. It's the college-going young adults. They would talk about I'll show them a picture. It's like the storytelling thing. I would maybe an interesting picture related to some experience that they have gone through, and then I would ask them to narrate something, whatever they feel like talking about when they see the picture. So that is one set of data, and conversation is going to be the other set of data. And the third one, I don't really do documentation as of now. Not documentation, the kind of formal documentation that field linguists talk about, but I do document maybe the dying proverbs that I have in my language. For example, my grandma is my most important language consultant. She's 93. Every time I go home, I would make sure she would tell me all those Odia, the idioms and the phrases, the proverbs. I would make sure when she would read her Odia Bhagavata, so I would keep recording the kind of intonation that she has in her speech. I make sure I document those. So my documentation is a different kind of documentation. This documentation is not about endangered or lesser known languages. Rather, I document different people so that I can actually, I'm sure, like with God's grace, she's doing fine, but I don't know how long she's going to survive considering the old days and then the problems that she has. So I make sure the people of her generation, of her age group, their language to be documented. So that would give me, maybe after 10 years, when I play those files and I have a child who is 14 years old, if I compare this 14 years old speech with the 93 years old speech, the narration, that's going to be different. So that's the kind of documentation that I do when I work on my own language. And finally, the annotation, I have plans to use ELAN Corpora because I'm trying to build a repository. That's what Item Address has funded, because they want me to build a corpus where all these conversations can be hosted. There are a lot of technological challenges. We need a proper website for it, and then there should be some space to be given so that all the conversations that I've recorded, all the transcriptions that have been done would be uploaded. So that the fourth category, I haven't started it yet. But the first three, I'm going on simultaneously. I'm recording conversations, I'm recording narrations, showing the pictures, getting the story told, and then I'm also documenting, especially the speech of the older generation, so that at some point of time, I can see how the language has evolved over a period of time. Okay, so these are my methods for doing the interactional linguistics sort of work. Okay, now I'll go to the problems and the pitfalls that I experience in due course of time. How much time do I have, ma'am? Kavita ma'am, if you could tell me. So
yes, Anandita, yeah, you have time.
Okay. So maybe 5 to 6 minutes maximum I'll take.
Sure.
Okay, so it's about problems and pitfalls. We all are familiar with the generic problems that women face. That's a different story, but I'll focus on what are the generic problems that researchers face, and then I'll talk about the stories of my story of my career for my thesis, and a very recent incident which happened when I went there again as a faculty. So how their expectation had changed, and how they treated me, as a PhD scholar, and how they treated me as a faculty from one of the premier institutes of the country. Fortunately, some of these Kadiya speakers, my language consultants, they know what an IIT is, and then what sort of work do we do, because education, I do not go much, I don't go into this very interior places, because we have all these Naxalites problems, so I don't dare to go there, but I would love to one day. But for my career data, generally, I go to Rourkela. If you know, if you can visualize Odisha as a state. So in the western part of it, we have Sambalpur, Rourkela, all these towns, and then I go to the suburbs of Rourkela, where we have a significant number of Kadiya speakers. So these are the urban villages. Of course, villages, but then their youth, they're not as, they're almost like us. So they know what education is, what are the different educational institutes in the country. So considering they are quite familiar with the right kind of with the kind of work that we do, so their approach towards me has significantly changed, because I keep visiting a couple of villages every time I go for Khadia data. But eventually I would like to go a little interior. This time I tried my hands with Ho and Juang. So this Juang community, and then the Ho is a language, and as a community, we do have quite a few Ho speakers in and around Similpala, which is a national, which is a reserved national forest, and it has been in news for all wrong reasons. There is a wildfire. If you followed the news, so I did visit to those hills during my last fieldwork. So we have Khadiyas and Mankidiyas over there. We have Birhor community, and then we also have Santals. We also have Khadiyas. So there are quite. So I'm generally working on Po and Khadiya as of now. Also Juang, because for my Copula project. So what are the pitfalls and problems that I encountered? I didn't have enough information or awareness about the document processing. Apparently there are, when I began my journey as a linguist, as a PhD scholar, when I went for data collection, I straight away went to that village, and this village was near, it wasn't near Raurkela at that point of time. This is near Tarche, which is an industrial town. And I went there, I went to this village, but nobody just came to help me, because I didn't have enough documents with me. So they were not really, they were a little apprehensive about about the purpose of my work. Why did I land over there? And then what sort of work do I do? Even if I tried to contact some of them, I could not do that. So I learned my lesson. I came back and I contacted the local Sarpanch first. So through the Sarpanch, the next day he arranged some of the Khadiya speakers, and then I could get some data at least. So I stayed there for 15 days, here I would actually give credit to my supervisor, Professor Pritha Chandra. She actually knew, she and her husband, they knew a couple of activists over there, so they helped me a lot to be connected with the local people. So through the Sarpanch, I could stay there. They helped me with a room, and then there was a girl who was staying with me to cook for me, and then we had a good time actually for this entire 15 days that I stayed as a PhD scholar. And then I just had a bedsheet and a pillow, like the air pillow. And this girl, she was super friendly. And then through her, I could actually get access to a lot of women folks around. So the lack of awareness of about document processing is a big challenge. Whenever you go to any field, like any field work for any kind of lesson on languages, make sure you are familiar with the administrative processes. Without that, it's going to be it's a language. This language, Monsang, for example, they have a strict rule that nobody can collect data from their village without the prior permission of the community, because there are only some 1,000 speakers left. So make sure you are familiar with the document processing, especially the administrative works. Do not go blindly and just say that, oh, listen, I'm a linguist and then I'm working on these languages, and either I'm a PhD scholar or I'm an independent researcher or I'm a faculty. They don't give a damn about it. So make sure you are familiar with the administrative documents. And then getting support from the community, which is related actually with the first point. That's a Herculean task. Most of the people, most of the community speakers over there, they are into farming. Either they would go to the jungle. I'm talking about my Khadiya story, not Odia. Odia has a different story altogether, and I didn't find it much difficult because I speak that language. and I belong to this community. Since I belong to this community, I know how to collect data from there. But when you go to an area where you do not know this language, you are not a part of them. So it becomes difficult to get support from that community. So you have to win their trust. And the challenge is that you do not have enough time. You have to finish your work maybe a week or 2 weeks time as a scholar. And if you have long time, that's wonderful. But then if you want to speed up the work and then you are working on some kind of description centric, just like the kind of work that I did for my thesis, I was describing. So description doesn't really need that rigorous sort of a field work. But now when I'm doing interactional linguistics, I have to win the trust of the community. Then only they would allow me to record their to record their conversation. And there are a lot of other ethical issues involved there. I must get their permission that it's going to be uploaded to a particular website. So they should give me consent for that. So these are different challenges like when you collect conversational data. But if you're working on description, if you're a descriptivist, the way I was working on, and then I'm still a descriptivist, I believe. So within a stipulated period of time, you have to win the trust of the community, and then you need to get the data as much as possible with a limited time period. So one of the biggest challenges is to get the support from the community. And then the third problem that I encountered is finding the right time to interact with the community speakers, because generally they go to the field. Their field means the jungle. So they go to the jungle or to the woods in that sense. So in the early morning, before test, and by the evening they would not be in a mood to talk to you for your research. So finding out the right time is difficult. So what I did, I would wake up before they go to the jungle. So what I'll do, generally they would brush their teeth, and then there would be a river out there. A lot of girls would be there, like the women. They would be sitting together and chit-chatting. So I'll just go and pester them. Could you please help me with some sort of data? And I would have a small questionnaire in my hand. Some sentences would be written, and then I would just try to find out how would you have this kind of a construction. Let's say I'm talking about passive, so then transitive, intransitive, ditransitive, these are the different constructions. So you need to find out whether they have transitive passives or not, intransitive passives or not, ditransitive passives or not. So then you make sure that you have the questionnaire ready. Without a ready questionnaire, it's going to be difficult. So finding the right time to interact with the community speakers, I find it always difficult, because I don't know in what mood they would be, whether they would consider my request or not. So that was a challenge, and convincing them to help you with the data is even more challenging. If you talk to them, it's fine. Some of them, they would be very friendly. Just for chit chat, it's okay. But the moment you write something, you take out your notepad and you start documenting or you start writing something, they would be conscious. So this is there, you find it difficult how to convince. So this is more like on the spot, you have to decide how to play around with their emotional position at that point of time. So how to convince them is a big challenge that you need to keep in mind. And I didn't have enough knowledge about the ethical issues as a student, but I'm more equipped now as a faculty, and I know the nuances, the ethical nuances that we have to consider as a field researcher. The other problem that I had during those days, which I'm trying to is lack of expertise in technology advancements. So gradually I'm getting more familiar, more comfortable with technology. I have better gadgets now. I have better equipments now. I have 2 different cameras. I have 2 different tripods. And then I have a voice recorder also. I know how to put things together and collect the right kind of data. So if you are technologically sound, then your documentation is going to be better. Your repository is going to be more accurate. So over the period of time, you can get a hang of it. And your expertise in technological advancements, it's going to be way more useful when that means you can collect more quality data in less stipulated period of time, and make sure you obtain the informed consent of the community speakers. Without their consent, it's just not possible to do anything that is extremely unethical. So make sure you have their consent whenever you are whenever you are collecting your data. Then now the story is, in spite of all the problems, all the challenges, and the gender stereotypes that we have. Shweta has already discussed from her experience, and these are the general stories for all of us. So we still have a couple of advantages being a woman, and one of the biggest advantages is that I find it less difficult to gain confidence of the women language consultants than the men. So I think I never had an experience of going to the field with a male colleague, never ever, because as I mentioned, my linguistics journey started as a PhD scholar. And then during my MA days, I just had a special paper, specialization, linguistics and ELT. I have always been working alone, either as a PhD scholar or as a faculty. I have never gone in a group. So I really don't know what sort of different experiences that male and female researchers have. But I am familiar with the advantages that I have as a woman researcher, as a woman field linguist, if I can call myself. So one is, I find it less difficult to gain confidence of the women language consultants. I do talk to them, and then as much as I just randomly, I talk to them about their family, their children, what sort of work do they do, what is their earning, and how difficult or easy their life is. What kind of movies do they watch? What kind of music do they enjoy? And what sort of makeup do they do? How their hair is so nice? And then what sort of, the tying of the sari, all kind of these things. I do a lot of small talks, and I'm sure all of us do that. And especially the women researchers, we are more expert in small talks than probably the men researchers. Again, it could be a gender stereotype, but then that's what I believe in. And I think I'm good at that. So I find it less difficult to win their confidence, especially of the women language consultants. And then I also find it easy to gain confidence of the children in the family. I do carry a lot of chocolates. Even when I was a PhD scholar, I was carrying a lot of chocolates, small tokens of like small gifts from Delhi. I love Delhi kind of thing, or some small keychains or little ceramic dolls and stuff like that. I used to carry for the children. So with the small tokens of gifts, you can actually win the confidence of the children. So I found it not that difficult to win the confidence of the children in the family, which was a big deal actually. So when the children open up, they would then eventually the elders, they would also join in the conversation. And the other thing is that you need to, and as women, there are certain traditional communities where you find it easy to gain access to. For example, there is this particular community, Ho speaking community in Similpal. They are into this, I don't know how many of you know actually, this handia making business. That is a kind of alcohol, country-made alcohol. They are into that. And the moment you talk about those things, they become very, very conscious of it, and they don't really open up much. So there are certain traditional communities which I feel they welcome women researchers, more like women visitors, more with more ease than others. So these are the three advantages I feel I have as a woman researcher. So the challenges are common because I really don't know what are the challenges for the male researchers, but for sure the previous slide that I have, all of these they are able to researchers in general, but these three I think they work in my favor. And the general gender bias, gender stereotypes that we have, Shweta has already talked about it, and I have similar kind of experience. So in spite of all the challenges, we have a silver lining, and then we learn things, we unlearn things, and I have started loving my field work. Even if I started it late, but I look forward to kind of go I look forward to go more miles, and then to be more extensive, to do this work in a more extensive fashion. So that's what my story is. As I mentioned, I would share one anecdote. During my Khadia data collection, when I went there, conversion is a big problem in my state. So this religious conversions that has always been there, those who are familiar with the Dara Singh incident back in 90s probably. So this has been a sensitive issue. So when I went there initially, some of the women, they said that they spoke in Odia. I'll translate it in English or Hindi maybe. They said a gori si ladki aayi hai to convert us. And then that was scary for me because Dara Singh incident it was quite old, but it wasn't that old also. So my parents were like super scared. They said, what are you doing there? You come back. We don't need any data. And then when the matter goes to religion, it becomes a little difficult. So make sure you are sensitive of, like you are familiar with the cultural sensitiveness that it has. So the moment they get to know that convert karane aayi hai and that she has come here to convert us, it's actually slightly risky for a woman researcher in the field. That's one story. And the other story is that this time when I went to the same village, they got to know that I don't have any conversion business. I'm just there to collect some data, that's it. They said, madam, when you are recording this, is it going to be screened in OTV or ETV or whatever, Odia channels we have? And they actually did organize a dance program for me in the evening, all this song and music and dance. They said, will it be telecast in the TV? Then I said, I wish I could do that actually, but I couldn't. So that was a very sad thing. But the community speakers, when they open up to you, they would expect certain things in return. If you can do it, that's wonderful. But if you can't, don't feel sad about it. So thank you. That's my story. So thank you for listening to me, and happy Women's Day to all of you again. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anandita, for sharing your experiences with us. I found myself quite connected as I myself got masters in English literature and later went for masters and PhD in linguistics because of ELT.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And
the way you could strike a chord. Yeah, thank you.
The way you have worked is surely going to enrich us as a researcher and of course as a learner. Thank you so much for being with us. And now we would like to welcome your questions. If anybody has any from both of our speakers, please keep it short as we are really running short of time. I don't think anybody has any questions. Thank you so much again, Dr. Anandita and Dr. Srita, for being with us. I'm sure your experiences are going to help us in coming time.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajit, and thank you, Professor. It was really a pleasure to be a part of this particular academic gathering. Not so academic, but still academic.
Thank you. And now I would like to invite SEL's respected president, Dr. Kavita Rastogi, for a vote of thanks. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Ajit. I could relate to many incidences shared by Srita also and by Anandita also. And you brought back so many memories in my mind, both of you. Because as Anandita was narrating the first incident, Anandita, same thing happened with me when I was visiting the field. Actually, I have been visiting the same field, but it was only my second visit, and the local people thought that I'm from some NGO. And I have some money with me, and I'm trying to. I'm not dispersing that money among the community. Rather, I'm just holding that money with me, and I'm disturbing the people and collecting and just recording things. So luckily, at that time, my husband was there. So the one thing as a female researcher, what I felt at that time, that I couldn't do that. मेरे हस्बैंड ने क्या करा, उन्होंने लोकल पीपल के कंधे में हाथ डाला, चलो यार चलते हैं चाय पीने. This kind of thing we can't do. हम ऐसा नहीं कर सकते थे. और हस्बैंड का वो चाय पिलाना उन लोकल 2-3 नेता लोगों को वो आगे तक के लिए मेरे लिए बहुत अच्छा रास्ता बन गया. So now, later on, whenever I visited that area, all those small neta of that hamlet and that village, they used to meet me and they used to help me.
Right,
So
right. So that's the connection that we kind of,
that's the connection. But वो चीज as a female researcher मेरे लिए मुश्किल होती. So, and or apart from that, my field is very actually it's a very interior area. So I'm not going to share all those things, but definitely many memories came to my mind. So thank you, both of you. Thanks a lot.